I'm so glad that you are here for the last edition for tips for speaking up. The first week I talked about preparation for speaking up and why emotional resilience is so important as we speak up. The last edition that I did, I talked about boundaries for speaking up, boundaries for ourselves and boundaries for others as we interact with them. And this week, I want to talk about building partnerships for speaking up. Now, this may seem like an odd two things to put together, but partnerships have become such a gift in my life. And so once you have a great partnership, it starts a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious cycle, a virtuous cycle of always looking for partners and the things that we're doing and for good partners. So when we are speaking up, we should know our strengths. So I'm going to apply this to me, and I'm going to apply it in the area that I've been called to speak into, which is racial equity. And so when I think about my strengths in this situation and what I can bring to a partnership as I'm speaking up, that one of my gifts is wrapping words around ideas and emotions. And so I'm a communicator, I'm a speaker and a writer. This is one of the strengths that I can bring. Think about what are your strengths that you can bring to a partnership. Number two, I talked to you last week about how I'm a resource junkie. So I have become a resource for resources. In fact, a friend of mine reached out, Amy Lively, recently, and she was doing a chapter in a new chapter for a book that she already has published called How to Love Your Neighbors Without Being Weird. Y'all, it's so good. You should pick up a copy. But she just wrote a new chapter, which you can find at her website, howtoloveyourneighbor.com. And she was writing about racial equity, and she said, Amy, can you give me some resources? So I did an interview and she included it in her chapter. And then I, on my website, put some resources if you are interested and about educating yourself about race. In fact, I will share that with my subscribers sometime soon, that resource list. So another strength of mine is I'm a resource for resources. And here's another strength of mine in this space. I am a white woman who can say hard things to other white women that sometimes white people have a hard time accepting some of these things from people of color. They wonder, is there an ulterior motive, or why is this being said to me? But whereas I can say some of those things because I am white. And so that is a strength that I bring. But I also have weaknesses in this space that are becoming more and more apparent to me over time. And so what happened recently is some of those weaknesses came into play. Back at the beginning of the year, I told you that all year I'm going to be sharing with you about this group that I'm part of this year called Year of Impact. I'm doing it with my friend Carrie Heisey, who owns a nonprofit called Design for Joy that I'm madly in love with. And so our first quarter, each quarter is going to be spent talking about, educating ourselves about different topics in our culture, and the first one was race. And so Carrie knows the journey that I've been on. She trusts me and loves me, and so she asked me to lead the conversation, the discussion, our first one, really about race. And I joyfully said yes. And then I started realizing that I had some real gaps that needed to be filled. And the gaps, my weaknesses that I recognized, and I have many in this area, but the two main ones are, number one, longevity. I have only been part of this conversation for a very, very short time. And so longevity brings credibility, and I don't have that yet. I'm glad that some of you have trusted me, and I'm thankful for that, but I'm very aware of my longevity gap and my weakness there. The other one is that I don't have personal experience. I am not a woman of color. So I have this strength that I can speak to a certain people group because I'm part of that people group. But then I have the weakness of not having the personal experience of having experienced racism in my life. And so I had these two big gaping holes. And so what I did is I reached out to Carrie, who's just an amazing leader, and I said, Carrie, I need a partner. I need a woman of color to help me lead this conversation. I am not able to do it on my own with the credibility and with the experiential stories that we need. And she said, fine, go for it. And so I asked another woman in our group, a woman of color who is fantastic. I didn't ask permission to share her name, so I'm not going to share it here now, but maybe I will later. And she helped me lead the discussion, and it was a fantastic partnership. And we were stronger because we were partnered than either one of us would have been individually. So to bolster our weaknesses and fill our gaps when we are speaking up, we should look for partners who have those strengths, especially if you're a person that is speaking into a crisis or a humanitarian crisis or an issue, a cultural issue, and you are not one of the people in the group being affected. You should be partnering with a person in that group, and they actually should probably be doing more leading than you are if you are not part of that people group. And so this is just one of the things that I'm learning is the beauty of partnerships. And guess what? Then friendships spring out of this. So that's a beautiful thing. That's my last takeaway for you today, is that when you are speaking up, look for great partnerships. And speaking of great partnerships, one of the wonderful partnerships that God has given me in my life is with Sherry Gregory, who is my co-host, or I am her co-host for Grit and Grace, and that is our podcast. And then one of the beautiful things that's happened with our partnerships is we are partnering with other communicators to get their messages out. And one of my favorites we've gotten to interview several times is Barb Roos. And Barb Roos has a new devotional out called Surrendered. And I'm going to put the link down below. We have this amazing conversation, a partnership with Barb Roos. And the conversation is called How to Release and Surrender the Extra of 2020. Some of us are still experiencing just the fallout of 2020. And Barb talks to us about how to surrender that and how to give it to God and how to heal and to handle that. And listen to me, there is one takeaway. She talks about how to have a funeral. I'll just give you that little hint. Life-changing. You'll never be the same if you hear it and do it. It's something new for me, and it will become a practice of my life. So don't miss that interview. Click on the link below and listen to our conversation with Barb Roos. Have a great, great day, friend.